Can a man stop chasing the world and still have it come to him? What happens when a man who once scattered his energy everywhere finally chooses to turn inward? When he stops performing, stops proving, stops reaching, and instead becomes still, not silent from fear, but from fullness, not restrained by shame, but anchored in sacred power. Chosen one, your journey didn't begin with glory. There was no applause when your soul whispered its first truth. No spotlight when your spirit said, "It's time." It began in the quiet, uncelebrated hours. When the world turned away, when your distractions lost their grip, and when you were left face to face with the ache in your chest. An ache not for touch or recognition, but for something deeper, something eternal, something that all the noise could never satisfy. You used to chase moments, attention, pleasure. You scattered your fire into every hand that reached for it. You gave your energy freely, thinking that visibility meant power. You mistook desire for love, chemistry for connection, and movement for meaning. You wanted to feel alive, so you poured yourself into everything that sparked, even if it left you empty. And it did, over and over again. You felt burned out, hollow, stretched thin, and unseen, even in the spotlight. But beneath it all, a flame remained, small, sacred, steady. Beneath the noise and the charm and the exhaustion, something eternal waited. Your soul didn't forget you. And when you finally stopped running, when you sat in silence, no longer afraid of your own reflection, that flame breathed again. Not wildly, not desperately, but cleanly, powerfully, calmly. Your fire changed. It was no longer a performance, no longer a cry for attention, no longer a weapon dressed up as charisma. It became focused, clear, purposeful. You began to hold your energy instead of leaking it. You began to walk in your body like a temple, not a transaction. You began to treat your sexual energy not as a craving to be fed, but a current to be guided. And in that guiding, everything changed. You stopped trying to seduce. You became seduction, not through manipulation, but through containment, through peace, through presence. Women no longer notice you because you try to be seen. They notice you because you are still, because you're sovereign, because something in you is now rooted, and they can feel it in the way you breathe. You don't need to impress anyone anymore. You don't shape-shift for approval. You don't chase to be chosen. You've chosen yourself, and that choice changed your frequency. You don't walk into a room needing anything. You walk in already full, and that fullness pulls people to you, not because you reach for them, but because you've become the kind of man who gives others permission to come home to themselves. Your presence doesn't shout. It hums. It resonates. It settles the room. You used to scatter your energy into every flirtation, every gaze, every compliment. Now, you hold it like sacred oil. Rare, rich, refined. Your attention isn't a trap. It's a gift. And the feminine feels it, not as pressure, but as peace. You no longer use women to feel powerful. You no longer chase bodies to escape your loneliness. You've stopped feeding the fire of your ego and started honoring the flame of your soul. You've become grounded, whole, clean. And that clarity, that purity, that self-respect, it's what makes your energy undeniable. Women feel it before they understand it. They feel it in your silence, in your walk, in your calm. You don't devour with your gaze. You bless. You don't push with your words. You reveal. You don't rush into intimacy. You create space for truth. And that kind of space is rare in a world addicted to games. You don't need to be desired. You are desire. Not the hungry kind that consumes. The sacred kind that offers. That holds. That witnesses. You're not trying to be sexy. You're clean. You're still. You're safe. And in that safety, the feminine relaxes. She softens, not because you asked her to, but because she senses she no longer needs to protect herself. You've shifted the entire meaning of attraction. It's not about appearance or charm anymore. It's not about smooth words or practiced confidence. It's about frequency, resonance, alignment. You're not loud. You're not demanding. But your presence is unforgettable. Because it's real. Because it's whole. There was a time when you confused freedom with indulgence. You thought being a man meant taking whatever you wanted, saying yes to every temptation, feeding every appetite. But it never satisfied. The highs were shallow. The pleasure was brief. The emptiness always returned. Then came the moment that changed everything. The quiet ache of realization that no matter how many people you touched, you didn't feel touched. No matter how many eyes looked your way, you didn't feel seen. You were loud, but lonely, desired, but directionless. And that pain saved you. You turned inward, not to escape the world, but to find your truth again. You stopped throwing your energy into places that never gave anything back. You started protecting your presence, and that protection became your power. You said no, not from fear, but from reverence. You withdrew, not to disappear, but to remember. And what you remembered changed your entire frequency. You remembered that real power isn't loud. It's contained. That sexual energy is sacred fuel, not to be wasted for cheap connection, but used to build inner kingdoms. That the more you hold your energy with honor, the more others feel its weight. You stopped reaching. You started radiating. You stopped begging. You started becoming. Now, you walk differently, breathe differently, sit differently. You don't rush to fill silence. You don't shrink to be liked. You don't twist yourself to be desired. You simply arrive as you are, fully, calmly, completely. And because of that, women around you feel something ancient, something clean, something holy. They sit closer, speak softer. Their voice changes when they speak to you, not because you demand it, but because your energy gives them space to return to themselves. You don't chase their attention. You carry your own. You don't need their approval. You're already anchored in truth. You are no longer a man reaching outward for meaning. You are the man who has become meaning. You are not looking for someone to reflect your worth. You live it. You are not performing. You are praying with every breath, with every step, with every presence you enter. Not the kind of prayer that asks for something, the kind that offers something. the kind that blesses without words. You have become the rarest kind of masculine, clean, rooted, disciplined, deep, not controlling, but sovereign, not detached, but deeply present, not seeking, but remembering. And that remembrance has changed your entire atmosphere. You no longer ask, how can I be desired? You ask, how can I stay aligned? You don't walk into rooms hoping to be seen. You walk in so fully present. Others remember themselves just by standing near you. You don't force connection. You embody it. You don't pretend to be powerful. You carry the silence of a man who has nothing to prove, and the world notices, especially women. Not because of what you say, but because of what you are. Not because of how you touch them, but because of how your presence makes them feel before you even speak. You've stopped chasing attention. You've become the reason attention shifts. You've stopped craving intimacy. You've become the space where others feel safe enough to open. You've stopped needing to be chosen. You've chosen yourself so completely that you've become the sanctuary others seek. And that chosen one is the quiet power that changes everything. This is no longer about the chase. This is no longer about trying to impress or prove your worth to anyone. You've grown past that. You've stepped out of the games and into something much deeper, something more real. You're no longer trying to win her affection. You're no longer seeking her attention through performance, charm, or cleverness. Instead, you've stepped fully into your own presence. And that presence speaks louder than any words ever could. Your power now doesn't shout. It doesn't demand the spotlight. It doesn't try to control or force an outcome. It doesn't pull or push. It simply exists. Steady. Certain. It's the kind of power that makes people pause, not out of fear, but out of respect. Not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. It's the quiet strength of a man who knows who he is. The grounded energy of someone who doesn't need to prove anything. The silent pull of someone who is deeply rooted in his own truth. You have become the calm in the storm. The steady rhythm that doesn't break under pressure. You are no longer performing. You are no longer trying to convince anyone to stay. You are simply being. And that being, that grounded, silent, confident being, is what draws her closer. She doesn't feel like she's being pursued anymore. She doesn't feel like a trophy to be won or a goal to be achieved. She feels something much deeper when she's around you. She feels honored. She feels free. She feels safe enough to be herself. She feels the space you hold, not as a trap, but as a sanctuary. She feels seen without judgment. She feels chosen without being pressured. Because you're not trying to own her light. You're not trying to consume it. You're simply reflecting it. And in doing so, you help her remember something she almost forgot. Her own power, her own magic, her own worth. This is the transformation. This is what changes everything. You're not trying to make her feel anything. You're not playing any games. You're not pulling emotional strings. You're just standing in who you are, authentically, quietly, unshakably. And because of that, she leans in without even knowing why. Something in your energy calls to something inside of her. Something ancient, something sacred, something true. She breathes easier around you. She laughs more freely. She relaxes in ways she hasn't been able to in a long time. Not because you told her to, but because your energy makes it safe for her to let go. You're not chasing her. You're not clinging. You're not trying to fix or change her. And that's why she comes closer, because she can feel that you don't need her to complete you. You don't need her to define you. You want her? Yes. But you don't need her. And that makes all the difference. Your desire is pure. It isn't rooted in emptiness. It isn't desperate. It's honest. It's clear. It's respectful. You've become the kind of man who desires from fullness, not from lack. You've cultivated your own wholeness. You've made peace with your own shadows. And now you carry an energy that doesn't pull, but allows. You've stopped trying to seduce. You've stopped trying to perform. Because you've realized that real seduction isn't a strategy, it's a presence. You don't need the right lines. You don't need to show off. You don't need to impress. You don't need to become what you think she wants. You've let go of the performance. You've surrendered the need to be chosen. And in that surrender, you've stepped into your highest strength. Because now, everything you do flows from authenticity. There is no act. There is no chase. There is only truth. There is only presence. She feels the difference. She sees it in your eyes, in your silence, in the way you move. She notices the lack of pressure, the lack of expectation, the freedom in your gaze. And it draws her in. Not because you're trying to lure her, not because you're manipulating her emotions, but because your energy is an invitation, an open door. And in a world full of noise, your stillness is magnetic. You used to think you had to do something to be worthy of love, that you had to say the right thing, play the right part, or chase the right way. You used to think attraction was something you had to create. But now you see, real attraction is something you allow. It happens naturally when you stop trying to control it. It flows when you stop forcing it. You've become the embodiment of that truth. You've stopped trying to possess her. You no longer need to conquer her heart. You honor her. You respect her. You give her space to be herself fully. And in doing so, you unlock something she's been protecting, something she's been waiting to give, but only to someone who could truly hold it. You don't need her energy to feel powerful. You allow her to access her own. You don't take, you invite. And in your presence, something sacred awakens. She doesn't feel like she has to perform either. She doesn't feel like she has to fit into anyone's idea of what she should be. She just feels free. And that's what creates the deepest connection of all. Not need, not pressure, but freedom. Two people meeting in truth. Two souls not completing each other, but reflecting each other's wholeness. You've changed the dance. It's no longer a back and forth of trying to win, trying to impress, trying to get her to see your worth. You already know your worth. And because of that, she sees it too. You've become the rhythm, not the dancer. You've become the still point in a spinning world. You're no longer chasing love. You're attracting it by becoming love itself, not by effort, but by presence, not by charm, but by truth. She senses that your heart is clear, that your spirit is grounded, that you have nothing to prove, nothing to hide, and nothing to force. And that is rare. that is sacred, that is unforgettable. She doesn't move toward you because you tried to pull her. She moves because she recognizes something in you, a peace that steadies her, a presence that doesn't flinch, a quiet, deep power that doesn't need to speak to be felt. You are no longer trying to be chosen. You are standing as one who knows he is already enough. And in doing so, you've created something priceless: space. Space for her to come as she is, to rise in her own light, to discover her own truth beside yours. And that space, that safety, that sacred invitation, it's what makes her choose you freely. This is no longer about taking. This is about sharing. This is no longer about proving. This